Welcome all to day 4 of Mastering the Art of Living. I'm going to wait a couple of moments. More people will join before I start. Well, welcome today to this session. Today we're going to talk about identity. And before I start with that subject, the topic, I would like to emphasize again for those, as I don't know you and I don't know your past, and I don't know what you have experienced in the past, for those who have had severe traumas, or for those who haven't been aware of their traumas, but things come up because they open up during this process. I want you to, if that becomes really intense and really heavy, please reach out to me. I'm not an expert on traumas, but I can refer you to someone who could help you with it. Because it can be really intense if something opens up so intensely. And then you hear me talking about things that you cannot hear at that moment because you're completely caught up in a very, very low frequency of fear and despair. And then my talks get really frustrating, and a lot of emotion will come up which you should not have at that moment while you're already in it. So please take your own responsibility when necessary to ask for help. And if you know, of course, if you know anyone else, I mean, you don't have to come to me, but you don't even have to let me know. But please take your own responsibility for this. Because I cannot feel what you're going through at every level. And I was touched today, perhaps that's the reason why I'm repeating this again, because I think I shared it with you yesterday already. I was deeply, deeply touched today by a video on YouTube of a guy of mid-20s who opened up about his abuse in his childhood. And that video was so intense. It really left me with a lot of pain and grief afterwards for hours. And it still is actually within my system. And again, I repeat to remind you of the practice. And within a few days, I'm going to dive a little deeper into that practice. But it would be really helpful if you've had some feeling of your senses, and hopefully I've made a little progress in this little exercise of 12 times a day or even more, to just let everything go. Take a deep breath and let everything go, and just be in silence and sense. And be curious what happens and what you sense. So identity is the subject of today, which is strongly related to thoughts. Because if you break it down, then your complete identity is only made out of thoughts. So without thoughts, there's no identity. That's interesting, isn't it? And the thoughts you have about your identity, like if I would ask you a question of like, describe yourself, who you are, then immediately thoughts would start and would give you a thought about the past that describes who you are, even if it was only yesterday. But who are you really? So if the identity is based upon thoughts, and I hope you agree with me that thoughts can be flexible. You can create a new thought every moment, every single moment. That also means you can create different thoughts about your own identity. The only challenge is it's not so easy to change with just a new thought, change your feeling about yourself. Because with the thoughts, the feelings arise. So if there's a negative thought about your identity within you, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not perfect enough, or I'm a failure, or whatever thought comes up, then a feeling arises as well that amplifies that thought. And often when the thoughts are negative, the feeling that comes is negative as well. Or at least the feeling confirms that the thought is negative. And of course, you can do a lot of work on your identity, and a lot of personal development work is based upon changing your identity or how you look at yourself. And that works all fine to a certain level. And you can get really far with it. And but it doesn't give true liberation of the deepest pain within you. And the deepest pain still is translated to you in your identity, what you think about yourself. So if you have a deep insecurity about an aspect of yourself, then that one is really, really hard to change with just personal development exercises or training. Because that emotion, that memory is stored so deeply in your system. And it almost comes up in various ways. So it's like, I always call it like a diamond. It keeps coming back in like different facet of the diamond, until you really have saw all the facets of it. And what I experienced is that what holds your identity in place is the attachment to your identity. Not the identity itself, but the fact that you're attached to it. So the fact that your life, if I put it really extreme, almost depends on it. Because without your attachment to your identity, it feels like you're nothing. Because if I would ask you now to drop, if it would be possible to drop any attachment to your identity and would ask, who are you? Then nothing would come up. You could only say, well, people say this about me, or I heard people saying that, but you cannot get to that anymore. Or it will be a story from the past again. And the beauty is that if you let go of the attachment to all these different aspects of what you call your identity, really let go of that attachment, that it releases your thought and emotions about it. So you really can then, from that space of letting go of the attachment, you can almost, I could almost say, like, observe yourself and unconditionally embrace that negative feeling about yourself. Because there's no longer an attachment. So you're no longer part of the problem anymore. And obviously this is not done in one day or one exercise. But it's a nice one to play with. So just think about the following things. I'm going to name a list of things you can just let go of, and you can make, at your time, your list and play with it. So let go of the attachment to being perfect, to be a good wife or a good husband. Let go of the attachment to be a good parent. Let go of the attachment to be always the nice guy. Or to be small. Or to keep yourself hidden so you can't make mistakes. Let go of the attachment of failure. Or to be successful. Or to be extremely helpful to everyone. Let go of the attachment to be loved. Even of the attachment to be loved by the person you love. Let go of the attachment to be a good friend. And let go of the attachment to be a not so good friend. Have said nasty things to your friends. And let go of the attachment to be right. That's a big one as well, for many. Me included. Let go of the attachment to matter. Because in the end, all these things I mentioned are beliefs about yourself. And they're different to every one of you or anyone else. We all have our own set of beliefs about ourselves. And some of them are good and help us and confirm us, and we're proud of them. And some of these beliefs are very limiting. And at first, there might be a lot of resistance in letting go of all the attachment, because what am I if I'm nothing? So that's a good question. Who are you? What do you sense if you leave your mind now outside, just outside the room where you're in, and ask you again, who are you? And no thought comes up. What do you feel? What do you experience? That's your being. That's what I refer to as presence. At least from the present state, you can access your being. And we know this being because we're all familiar with intuition. We're all familiar with the gut feeling. That's not created by a thought about our past. There's a knowing inside of us that even knows why we're here. And if you find that sentence too soft or too fluffy or too spiritual, let it go for now. Just focus on your being, because that gives this solidness and peacefulness that's who you are. That's always there. It never changes. That's the beauty about it. It never ever changes. When I access that field or connect to it, it feels always the same. It can feel more intense, and then it feels even more better, like overwhelming. But it's never heavy. That being is even different from the senses in your body that kind of like gives contraction or nervousness, or that's your body, the memory in your body that's reacting or contracting, the reaction to an emotion. I cannot really describe the being. Like I said before, it's deeper than you and it's bigger than you. It's limitless. So if you're caught up in your identity with your thoughts, and you keep repeating the same thing about yourself, I understand it's hard to let go of that if you don't know where to go to. But there is a place to go to. What's always there? And from that space, you can love your identity. And you can laugh about it. When you take things less serious about your identity. Because from that space, there's no attachment. And make a list for yourself. What are your biggest attachments about your identity that you hold on to? Observe if you always want to be right, for instance, or if you have the feeling that you have to know everything better, or the feeling that you have to be perfect, or the feeling that you have to be kind always and at service to others. And you can notice that where your attachment is strongest for you to your identity, where your defense mechanisms show up. So when you are literally defending yourself, or even when you're excusing yourself, that's also a defense mechanism. Or rationalizing yourself. Oh, it's no problem, I can do a little bit more. No worries, I'll take that job from you. I'll finish it tomorrow. So letting go of the attachment is diving into a space of love. That's what presence is. Pure space of love. And that opens your heart. That releases the blocked memories, the blocked energies. And like I said before, for some you have to do it again and again and again. The ones that you're most critic about yourself. We call it the inner critic voice. You know, that little voice in the back of your head when you postpone things because you are nervous and afraid to do something, or to feel uncomfortable, or don't think good about yourself in a certain role, or that voice where you put yourself down. That's your inner critic voice. And for some people, strong belief systems are hard to let go of. A belief system like holding to a promise, keeping your word. They can get really defensive about that. And with our identity, we have taken up several roles, but we don't see them as roles. Sometimes we're completely identified with these roles. It's like you are your function at your work, and you practically like are that, feel like you are that for 25 hours a day. And when someone attacks you in your job or the function you have at your work, then you feel completely attacked as a person, because that's who you are. You're completely identified. And what happens when you lose the job? Your world collapses. Or you cannot let go of the job because everything depends on it. You build your whole life around your job. You're not even sure you really like your job anymore, but it feels like that's who you are. And when you're so caught up in your work and in that role of your work, or the function you have, position you have, and you're no longer working from your passion and talent, but you work because you have to do it, then you end up in a burnout eventually, or stressed out, or because perhaps admitting that you're not that role means admitting that you're not successful, or whatever belief system that's behind that identity. And don't understand me in a wrong way. You're not losing your identity by this process. You're not losing your identity by connecting to your presence and letting go of attachment. That's not what we're aiming for here. Or at least that's not what I'm trying to explain. It's the attachment to the identity. That's what it is about. So you can love your identity. You can play with it, and you can change it, and you can try new things. And like me here, getting very uncomfortable with a new situation. And I already love it after 4 days. I didn't like the first day so much, as you know. And if I have to talk about something else, I might not like it, because then it gets uncomfortable again. And then the same pattern might repeat, because I might feel insecure about that. Hey, that's another attachment. Because then I'm afraid of failure, and so on and so on. So they come in so easily, these attachments, so easily. You're so easily identified with who you are, or who you think you are. But it's all based on past experiences. That's done. That cannot be changed. Doesn't have to be changed even. Just complete acceptance that it has been like that. And it has served you for many years. Don't get mad about it or angry about it. It has served you. Because certain aspects that you were insecure about or didn't feel good about, the inner critic voiced, made you develop other aspects you became really good at. So you developed other drivers or competencies within you that you're really good at, because you had to compensate or cover the other aspects you didn't really like about yourself. But now it's time to let go of those. Or look at it differently. And be the nice guy because you want to be the nice guy. Because it really feels good. Not because of a past negative experience. So you are seen. But you probably are a really nice guy, so you like that role. You're good at it, probably. Okay, I'm going to leave it with this. Please put some questions in the group if you have any. I will try to install the microphone I just received tomorrow, and I hope the voice will get better then, or the sound will get better. But if you have any other comments or questions, or would like to share something, or just want to say hello in the group, just let's see if we can get a little bit of interaction there. Even if it's uncomfortable at first, to open up a little bit. But any specific questions to me, if you don't want to ask them in the group, you can always contact me directly. Okay. Gonna leave you for today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.